Okay,
Hello. Okay. Hello, Fernanda. Would you like to introduce yourself to us?
right. Hello, Teresa, and thank you very much for inviting me to take part on this project. So, my name is Fernanda. Me is my surname, and I live in Dorking in Surrey. But I was born in Brazil, and I came to England in 1989. So I've been here quite a long time. I can't remember why I came anymore, but it must have been part of the Dominican vocation, although at that time I didn't know much about it. But there you are. So this is a little bit about myself.
Hmm.
Um, I'll hand
Okay.
it back to you.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what first attracted you to the Lay Dominicans, or to the Dominicans in general?
Um, well, I, I guess I guess I always knew something about there was an order of friars called the Order of Preachers, and more commonly known as the Dominicans. But it was always on the back burner, right? I never thought much about it. Um, then I guess, well, I'm going to blame one particular Dominican for kicking starting the whole thing. He was a colleague. We studied together at one point. He's now a Dominican priest. He's a friar. Can I name him? Is he?
Yes, you can. Yes.
He knows about it because every time I see him, I said, "Oh, it's all your fault." His name is Father Joseph Balaam.
Ah,
Um,
yes.
he's he's at the priory in London. So he was circulating this invitation to take part on a Dominican study week in the
Mhm.
summer for university students. Now I was studying at the time, um, and I thought, wow, it's in Devon, wonderful. A week spent in Devon, what's not to like? Never mind Thomas Aquinas, you're there for the scenery. But anyway, so I went, and then I got really intrigued by the whole thing. So one thing leads to another, and then I met a few more Dominicans, but I guess what really attracted me, in a sense, was the motto of the order and the search for truth. Is it true? And that really, really kind of caught my attention and my imagination, and I got more involved as time progressed.
Mhm. Yes, okay, yeah. The pursuit of truth is always, it's a great hook, isn't it? Okay,
Indeed, indeed.
yeah. Okay, so now that you are a lay Dominican, how has that impacted your life, do you think?
Well, I guess I wrote a few notes on that, but I guess it goes back a little bit to the first question, because this search for truth has always been very much part of my being, I suppose. But I just didn't know what I was looking for in terms of truth. Um, but that correlates with the second aspect that why I find Dominicans so attractive, which is the joy that they have uh, for their attitude towards life and to each other. And I guess, well, if you're searching for truth and you got so much joy, so truthfully, the whole thing must be very joyful. So I think it brought a certain joy in my life that perhaps it was lacking, and also it made me do things that I probably thought I would never do, such as praying the Psalms.
Hmm.
And one thing that scared me, I said, oh no, if I become a lay Dominican, I have to pray the office. And it's so boring. Oh, I'm never gonna manage that. And nowadays, I recommend everybody. So, oh, don't you know how to pray? Well, why don't you start with the
Yeah.
office and you start with night prayer, which is the shorter. and
Yeah.
and take it from there. So it, in that sense, it made me pray more, definitely, for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, good. So you mentioned it earlier that the Dominicans are known as the order of preachers. Yes.
Mhm.
So, in your daily life, what opportunities do you find for preaching? And by that I mean preaching in its widest sense.
Yeah, that's quite a good question, which I guess a lot of people have that in mind when they consider lay Dominicans, and you don't necessarily associate being a lay person with preaching, because people think of the preaching from the pulpit, a mass, um, and so well, how can you do that if
Mm,
you're not a priest, you're not ordained? Um, how can you preach? But as and it was the master of the order actually said, put that very, very beautifully. Liturgical preaching is just one way of preaching.
mm,
It's but it's very important for sure, but it's just one way of preaching. So you can preach in different ways. And I guess um, I work as a parish secretary, and I work also in parish as catechist in various parishes. So I guess it comes with the job a little bit
mm.
nowadays. I wasn't always like that. I'm a kind of this is a long story. We're not going to go through the whole thing because I'm getting a bit old, so your story gets longer and longer. But I'm a revert to Catholicism. Yeah, I was lapsed for many years. So, but nowadays, I work in parish settings with various catechetical groups, and I earn a living as a parish secretary. It pays the bills. I'm not sure I'm really cut out to be one, but never mind. So I guess the preaching comes into those settings for sure, that there will be more, you could say it's a more obvious way of preaching when you're teaching, when you're talking to young people, or parents of young people, or parents preparing for baptism, whatever whatever set group it is. But I try to engage in conversations as well. And just a matter of fact, I mean, I've got three adult children. Well, they believe they're adults in their 20s, um, and who are not particularly involved in the life of the church. But we always have this conversation, even some random stuff, and then they'll come, oh, here comes mom with the God stuff again. But we try to bring that into the conversation and makes it a little bit more exciting and accessible as well. Um, you bring things from, I don't know, from the gospel, or passage from scripture or whatever that makes sense. Or even a meme. I mean, I remember I sent them a meme on it was a Jesus meme, what they call a Jesus meme. It was like a joke about, I don't remember what it was. It was this chap saying that, oh, stop giving me all these hard battles, talking to Jesus. And Jesus said, come on, I only asked you to fold the laundry or something like that. So I send that to the kids, and we have that conversation of, and I guess that is preaching as well. And that's, perhaps preaching in our language has got a bad name, really, when you talk of, so don't preach at me, or stop being preachy or whatever. But preaching is none of that. Preaching is engaging really on a listening and a speaking conversation. It's a process.
Mm.
And then talking at somebody, you engaging in the conversation.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme when I'm speaking with others. Is this idea of engagement and just having conversations with people,
Mm.
um, and establishing friendships.
Yeah,
And Thomas Aquinas was very big on friendship and friendship with God and friendship with others. So yes, that all makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah.
Okay. Dominican Saint Fernanda, uh, who is your favorite Same, the one which you have the most devotion to, and why?
Well, Teresa, I guess it goes back to that thing of friendship, isn't it? How many friends can you have?
Yeah.
And saints are friends in heaven.
Hmm.
What's the official ones that have been named and recognized. So I guess it kind of it depends really. It depends on the situation. It depends on whatever conversation is going on at the time. Say, for example, I guess if I'm, if I want to have a conversation about mission, I'll go and have a chat with Saint Dominic. So he becomes my best buddy because Saint Dominic, everybody says, oh, he's the founder of the Order of Preachers, which is rightly so, he is, but it was never about his thing. It was never his something that he never saw it like that. He was always more interested in the mission. So, if you go and talk about mission, then I guess the St. Dominic's my best buddy. If I need a little bit of a counsel on humility, I go and talk St. Martin of Porres, because St. Martin of Porres is the master, the saint of humility. So if I think I'm lacking a little bit, which I tend to be lacking very often on that area, I say, oh, come on, St. Martin, let's have a chat here about humility, because I'm struggling with that. And when I'm really cross with my bishop, then I'll go to St. Catherine.
Mm.
It sorts me out. And then I'm not angry with the bishop anymore, because she was the one to tell bishops what to do, particularly if he was the Bishop of Rome and he was in the wrong. And she will go and say, come on, get back to Rome. And
Yeah.
so she's definitely will be a favorite in that respect. And she has
Yeah.
saved lots of difficulties as well.
Yeah.
So that's 3 examples there. But it's all about friendships and those friends that we have in heaven, really.
Yes.
Handy at different times.
Okay, that's lovely. And finally, Fernanda, which book, you can have more than one, but not more than three.
Oh,
Which
that's
book,
gonna be hard.
yeah, which book or books would you recommend for us
Ah,
to read?
that's gonna be really hard. This one. Okay, we'll start with one that kind of inspiring. I can't remember what the title is. By Paul Murray. The Wine of Dominican. Oh gosh, I was given that when I made my first profession.
Oh,
But that was a really interesting book. Paul Murray is a great author. Anything by Paul Murray is good. He's an Irish Dominican. He's of a certain age now. I hope he's still with us. I think he is. I haven't heard otherwise. The New Wine of Dominican Spirituality. That's the one. You probably heard about this reason. Yeah, that's a really great book to inspire people or people who are just curious about the Dominican order. That's a good one. But I think it was one. I'm gonna go Dominican all the way here, which is a bit sad, but there you go. Now I'll finish with that. So that's one book, right? Paul Murray. Anything, I'm gonna be a bit. This is cheating, right? Because I'm going to mention the author. I don't know the book. And that he helped me a lot to learn about theology for people who like theology in general. Anything by Herbert McCabe, another great Dominican, and he was good. But one particular, so I'll single out one, which is a bit of proper McCabe vintage. It's called Law, Love, and Language. It's of his time. If people like vintage things, that'll be one to read. It's very 60s, 70 kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of wisdom in it. Third one, just read the Psalms. There you go. Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna get away without a Dominican. Just read the Psalms. All right, book of the Psalms. There you go.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you.
Herbert McCabe and the Psalms.
Yeah, I agree with you about the Psalms, because they're so, they reflect humanity so much, don't they?
Yeah.
Love, fear, anger, despair, everything, joy. I love the
Yeah.
Psalms, yes. And actually Herbert McCabe, although he is his writing is of his age, the 70s and 80s, I find he's still quite relevant and
Oh, yeah.
very relevant actually in these days. And he's been mentioned more than once in these little talks that we've been having.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
that,
One of the favorites.
right. That gives me great joy because actually he helped me a lot with my studies as well. I went back to university as a mature student
Mhm,
to study theology and religious studies because I was thinking of retraining as an RE teacher at the time.
mhm,
Um, and I did a study on Herbert McCabe on the Trinity, I think. And the lecturer said, oh, this is really good. Why don't you do McCabe for your dissertation last year, at your final piece? I said, oh, okay, I'll do that. So I studied a bit of McCabe on the sacraments, and that was what I wrote for my
mhm.
my
Yeah.
uh, undergraduate thesis. Um, and then
Good.
see that's all the Dominican thing. You go more and more and more at the time. Somebody recommended me to go and contact Timothy Radcliffe because they were good friends at the time. Um, and I did, and we had a conversation. Um, I wasn't. No, I was inquiring. I began to inquire around that time
Mm,
as an inquirer. Um,
yeah.
so
Yeah, I think that's another thing that I've noticed is that within the Dominican family, there's so much generosity, isn't there? And people are so ready to share their knowledge with you
yeah,
or to encourage you on your own journey, whatever that may be. You know,
yeah. And
yeah,
sharing the joys as well. I mean, I
yeah,
remember on that study week, we used to go to the pub and have a drink in the pub and have those conversations.
yeah,
And I think that makes it attractive as well. And it's something that the world needs, a lot
mm,
of it,
I
really.
think so. Yeah.
I was just going to sneak a fourth book, but I think
Oh, go on then. Go on then.
it's not a very known book, but I think it's out of print. It might be out of print. It's called The Ways of Imperfection by Simon Tugwell.
Mm.
It's really good for numpties like me that kind of get it all wrong and then God transforms it somehow. People that go wander in the desert and everything goes wrong and then come back again. It's really good
Oh. Oh,
for
I
those.
haven't. I haven't seen that one. I shall keep an eye open for it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll show you. I, I did buy a copy for a friend recently,
Mm.
but it was like the last one. I'm not sure it's still being printed,
Uh-huh.
which is
Okay.
a shame. I mean, somebody might pick it up again, but there you go.
Yeah.
That's one for you, Teresa. I kept that
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Ways of
Okay
Imperfection.
then, Fernanda. Well, thank you very much
No,
for
it's a pleasure.
sharing with us and for giving up your time for us. Okay.
No, that is a pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank you.
inviting me.
Thank you.